Good evening, lovely spirits. It's the wise servant here, Mr. Solace. Peace and wisdom. Now today I want to do this video called The 7 Directions of Self. And this has to do with the duality of self. Now we're all familiar with the physical body and the physical aspect of life. But there's an unseen part of self. The being. We call this the spirit. Some call it the life force. But that unseen part of self, that unseen aspect of life, that is not physical, this has its direction as well. Now the 7 directions of self is north, south, east, west, upper, lower, and central, which is middle. Now the body deals with north, south, east, west, which is the physical direction, the 360 degrees around us. But the physical nature or the physical being that you are, you don't go up, you don't go down below. You just move about your north, south, east, west perspective. Now the spirit is trapped within the body. Therefore the spirit does not move forward, backwards, left, or right. Because this is what north, south, east, west is. But being as though the spirit is trapped in the body, the spirit moves the body north, south, east, west. But the spirit itself does not move north, south, east, west. The spirit moves upper, lower, and central. So it's like 2 energies, vertical and vertical and horizontal. And the spirit's direction is up and down, which is upper, lower, and central. And the physical direction, or the body's direction, is north, south, east, and west, which is forward, backwards, left, or right. So to give you a perspective, you can say this is north, south, east, west, 360 degrees, 4 corners of earth, the physical body. And this is the spirit's direction, up and down. Now first I want to deal with the spirit's direction, because this comes first, and this is what controls the physical aspect. So it's a very deep thing. Now with the spiritual direction, you have upper, lower, and central. Now the upper spiritual direction, which would be the heights of self, this would be the ego, the pride, the becoming full of self. Now I know we've all heard you want to be in your higher chakras, but this is not accurate. But I'll get into that as I go through this video. Now when you're in your higher chakras or higher self, this is your highest spiritual direction, the upper. And this leads to ego, pride, and one becoming full of himself. Now when a thing reaches its heights, there's only one way to go, and that's down. So it's a deep thing. Now you have the lower direction of the spirit, which is the lower chakras of self. And this is the insecurities, the fears, the things that make the life become destructive, the things that make a person become destructive to themselves, where they do not blossom into their greatness. And this is what the lower directions of the spirit is. Then you have central, and this is the balanced spiritual self between upper and lower. The balance between self-love and self-hate. The balance between ego and pride and the opposite. So you want to be at central spiritual direction. You have upper, lower, and central. And these are the 3 spiritual directions of the 7. You want to be central. Now, why this is important is because the spirit's direction, which is upper, lower, and central, this will play out into the physical body's direction. Left, right, forward, or backwards, which is north, south, east, or west. Now the place that the spirit is in, meaning if the spirit is in the upper, this will play out into the physical life, in the physical direction. If a man is in his ego and pride, he will move in this direction in the life. If a man is in his lower spiritual direction, he will move in this way in the physical life, in that physical direction. If a man is at central direction of self, he will move in the physical in balance. And it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. Now with the body direction, you have north, south, east, and west. And we all know the sun rises in the east. And this is like a man rising into his greatness. Now when the sun reaches its heights, this is like a man basking in his ego and his pride. He's become full of himself at high noon. And this is north. And then when the sun reaches its heights, we all know what happens at that point. It begins to descend. And this is west because the sun sets west. So the physical direction west is representing the fall from greatness. So it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. And then the south, this is rock bottom. This is after the sun sets. This is the dark period, the low parts of man. And it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. The way you are spiritually will set the course on the way you are physically, in the physical direction. If a man is too full on himself, he will be knocked down. If a man is so low, he has no way to go but up. And this is the cycle of man. We come up, we reach our peak, we be feeling ourselves, and then things start to decline until we hit rock bottom. And then, so the cycle begins again. So we all go through this through our whole lives. From when you was a child all the way to now, you've been through this many times where you begin to come up. Then you begin to feel yourself as you're at your heights. Then you begin to decline. Then you hit rock bottom. And this is the cycle of life. And this is the cycle that men go through. Now the spirit, if it's not central, your spiritual emotion will go through these ups and declines. Because we acquire a lot of material things, we lose them, then we acquire more. Now when your spirit is attached and not balanced, meaning in central direction, you go through the emotions of these things. So it's one thing to physically gain a lot and then physically lose. But it's a whole nother thing to spiritually go through this. Meaning, whatever you gain, you lose. This is life. Wise men know this. So they stay in the balance. I've had a lot. I've lost a lot. All is well. They're not spiritually and emotionally going through the motions. And that's what this is all about. getting your spirit at central so that you can be at central in your physical. It's like the compass of self. It's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp. You want to be central at spirit so that when you're indulging into all the directions of life, your highs, your lows, your spirit won't be attached to these things going up and down. Because as of now, this is your body, north, south, east, west, 360-degree physical. This is your spirit within, going up and down, up and down. And this is why you have like yoga, and in Hinduism they teach about the chakras. This is what this is all about. The spirit within is going up and down. And in this, the physical is going all around because the spirit controls the body. And what you want to do is get to a still place where you can get the spirit vibrating right there in its balance between the upper selves and the lower self. Therefore, your physical body won't be all over the place, dragging your spiritual emotion with it. Your body will have a sense of stability. So it's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp. This is why in Hinduism they do like yoga and different meditations. It's not to activate the chakras. I know we hear this a lot in today's times. Activate the chakras, activate the third eye, but every aspect of your being is already activated. It's just a matter of you getting control of what's activated. So we have to get things in better perspective. Every piece of yourself is activated. Now, when you're doing meditations, what you're supposed to be doing is getting the spiritual direction to central, balanced, right in between the heights of self and the lows of self. Therefore, you can experience without being attached and overindulging in certain directions of the physical. It's all about balance. We tend to think being good is good and being bad is, and it's a matter of being right in the balance. The morality, where you begin to notice and take account. So it's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp when you're dealing with the 7 directions of self. This is no different than chakra activation talk, but this is just more stable. The knowledge we have in today's times, it's all over the place. It's kind of losing its authenticity, but with the 7 directions of self, I want you guys to grasp this is the authentic of that. The true understanding, the breaking down of the duality that you are. We all go through this life seeing our physical shell, the egg cell, but we forget about the sperm cell or the spirit or the life force within. The sperm cell went into the egg, it never came out. This is all you, egg and sperm cell, the duality. So you have to grasp, it's a very deep thing. Now we forget all about the spirit of self, which is who you are. The body's just moving on your accord of how you are spiritually as a person. When I say spiritually, I'm not talking religious talk. I mean, you have a body and you're the spirit in. Being as though this perspective is kind of lost and you see yourself as the body, the spirit of self, which you truly are, is not truly acknowledged. We feed our physical, but we don't check and see what our spiritual emotion is feeding on, meaning the energies. Are you in a hateful state of being at the moment? Are you in a happy state of being at the moment? Are you depressed? Like these things. Before you eat, you should check your spiritual state of being. Feed that first. Get your state peaceful. Find peace. Find a place of joy before you go feeding your physical. We tend to the physical, completely ignoring what lies within. You clean your body, but the spirit needs cleansing as well. It's a deep thing in this physical life. Like I said, you got north, south, east, west. And we go all around the board, being pulled from one direction to the next. Whatever's trending at the moment, whatever's popular at the moment. And we're pulled back and forth, and we're trying to catch up with all these directions. And you must find that central place where you're right in the middle of every direction, north, south, east, west. You're right in the middle of it. So whatever's happening in any direction, you're experiencing it, but you're not being drugged all around. If you can grasp my point. A man dragged east, then west, then south, then north. The man that is central, he experiences what's happening south without being thrown all the way into it. He experiences east, west, north without being thrown into it. You can correlate this to the rising of the sun, because the sun, like I said, is the great spirit. The macro being that we're the cells in. And you learn from the life and you observe the sun. Now the sun rises in the east, and it's on its way up. No different than a man when he's the new rapper and he begins to get hot. And he's like the sun rising from the east. Now when high noon comes, we all know the sun is at its peak. It's not getting any higher then. From that point on, it's going down. But when it's at high noon, you know, the sun is shining. It's like a man that's at his peak, feeling himself. You can't look at him because he's the man, baby. And the sun is the same. You can't even look straight when the sun is at high noon. How your forehead hurting. So it's a deep thing, but once high noon passes, the sun begins to fall or set. And this is to the west. And this is like the great rapper at his peak, when he begins to decline and he's not as hot anymore. And it's a slow process like the sun setting, but he begins to fall. Then when nighttime comes, the sun, darkness, rock bottom. And this is like a man. And you don't want to be pulled between these ups and downs. This is what brings on the stress. You want to be central, like the sun, right before daytime and nighttime. You know that time of the day, right before day, right before night? Happens twice a day, where it's not quite night and it's not quite day. I forgot what they call that time of day. But this happens when the sun is rising and when the sun is setting. And this is central. That's the most beautiful time of day. I know people don't observe the sun and things like this anymore. But if you do, you know, everyone knows this. At that moment, when it's not quite night and not quite day, that's the most beautiful time of the day. The sun is like purple, pinkish sometimes. It's just truly beautiful, but it's not a long period. But if you catch it and you're able to gaze at the sky, it's beautiful. You can see the stars in half the sky. You can see like the clouds taking their color, like sometimes burgundy or pink, and it's just a beautiful moment. And we get this twice a day. And this is that central part of self. Because within self, the spirit is the sun to the cells within self. And you're moving up and down just like the sun. Setting and rising, setting and rising. And this is happening in your physical life. You're coming up and going down and you're going through the motions. But if you can bring your spiritual self and begin to tap into that peace, and I have my peace rituals and certain things I do, and I bring myself to that central place. Once you get it there, you know it's a process. You will be knocked out, and you will, but as you begin to get control, you just vibrate at that central place. Everything around you, your whole perception will change. The reason y'all see things the way y'all do and we perceive things the way we do and our understanding is the way it is because we're in the lower directions of self. So as you can see around you, it's very destructive. You have a lot of insecurities and fears. And people are pushing these fears and insecurities onto others. And this is causing chaos. You know, if a person can't do something, then they say, oh, you can't do that, and it gets chaotic. Wars, fighting. We can't seem to see the simple way to live amongst one another in peace. There's so much space, but we just can't seem to get it together. And this is because we're in the lower directions of self and the highest. Meaning, everyone's going like this. One moment a man's down, the next moment he's feeling himself. One moment he's down, the next minute he's feeling himself. And the reason this is happening is because the spiritual direction is not planted at central. So where man just coast, knowing you will gain, you will lose, but all is balanced. It's fair. You was the man, now you're not. Balanced. Fair. But we get tied into others' perspectives, and this is us being pulled north, south, east, west. See, the physical direction is powerful. And if the spirit is not centered, spirit be like this in the body, going up and down, and the body just all over the place. It's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp. The 7 directions of self. Find balance. We have to begin to understand what that means. Now, I do one-on-ones on this subject. And this is a teaching of mine that I do every day with myself. I come in, I play music without words. And I bring myself down. Because the words in the music is more condensed than just the music. It's all a matter of condensing. Sound condenses into word, and word condenses into action. But I try to listen to the music in its spiritual nature, meaning not condensed, but wordless. And I put on my Native American flute music that I like, and I just calm myself. Because music, it's like when you put on lovemaking music, it gives you that feeling. You put on Rada music, it gives you that feeling within self. So the music is important. And I put that calming, those flutes on. And I sit on, this is what I'm sitting on now, but I usually have it on the floor. And I just bring myself down to a central, peaceful, balanced place. And then from there, push out good energies, positivity, think of goodness. I try not to think of anything bad or negative. It really doesn't matter. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. People carry around the negativity with them, the baggage, the regrets, the guilt, and it's because of a lack of balance. People have guilt because they have no balance within. People have regret because they have no balance within. So they're pulled from this way, that way, that way. A man has regrets of not doing this thing or that thing. And it's only because of the perspective of the pressures of the physical. People expect you to do this, do that. A man wants to be a rapper, and he doesn't ever become one. And he has this regret and unfulfillment in himself, and it's only because of his perceptions of the physical, the peer pressures of the physical. Grasp. It's a deep thing. Most young men in today's times want to be rappers because this is the perception. A lot of them can do other things and be way great. Way more great. But rap is the thing. So a man's pulled and he never becomes one, and now he has this guilt. All because of physical perception. There was a time where rap didn't even exist. And men wanted to be singers. And they had their guilt and regret because of that. And it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. You got to get to a central place of self. Now that's the 7 directions of self. North, south, east, west, upper, lower, and central. The duality of self. The body and the spirit. North, south, east, west is for the body and the physical. Upper, lower, central, directions of the spirit. And this is up and down, lower, central, upper. And the spirit moves in that direction. And the body is north, south, east, west. And it moves in its 360 degrees of perception. And it's like horizontal meeting vertical. I think I said that the reverse way, I'm sorry. But the light energies of the spirit moving in its direction, and the physical dark energies moving in their direction. So the spirit within the body moves in its direction, and the physical moves right around that. And it's a deep thing, and it's the joining of the energies. It's a deep thing. But that's the 7 directions of self. And it's your main man, Pasun, the wise one, Mr. Solace. Peace and wisdom. Balance and order.